before you with contrite heart. Humbly I surrender all that I am. I want to learn from you. Please draw me close to you. Help me share your love and grace in all I do. Lord, I come before you with contrite heart. Humbly I surrender all that I am. I want to learn from you. Please draw me close to you. Let me share your love and grace in all I do. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Help me shine a light to a darkened world, and always leave your truth in every way. May your love for me be seen by everyone, and lead others to trust and love you more. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Lord, transform me to serve. Lord, transform me to serve.
Welcome to all our viewers to another episode of our Health Corner. Today I have with me Dr. Yasmin Allison-Burnette, and I'm your host, Pastor Edward Guillaume. Dr. Yasmin Allison-Burnette is a pediatrician attached to the St. George's University, and she's also the president of the newly re-established Adventist Health Professional Association. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Pastor.
And today we are going to discuss the topic of childhood obesity. And as the Bible says that we should train up a child in the way he or she should go. And so the first question I want to ask Doc is, why are we talking about childhood obesity today? What is so important about childhood obesity?
That's a very good question, because most persons don't think that we have a problem with our children. I don't know how often Grenadians use that term, but very often I hear persons tell me, Doc, my child is not fat, he just mastiff. So, you know, he's firm and he's big and he's good. So we don't recognize what an obese or an overweight child looks like. We're just concerned that we like persons looking fat and looking well, but it is not about how we look, but it is about how we are. So in my eyes, I might look good and I feel good about how I look, but when the doctor looks at me, he sees problems. So it is about what problems do our children get and how many of them are getting these problems now because they are obese.
So the fact that you mentioned that, what is a definition for childhood obesity?
Yes, so when we're talking about obesity, what we're talking about is the amount of fat that a child has. So the percentage of the body that is fat. So we know that our body is made up of water, you know, most of it in our blood, etc. We have our bones, we have our muscles, we have the skin, we have the hair, but we also have body fat. And it is important to have body fat. So that's another misconception I don't want people to get. So we do need fat. The fat is important in terms of maintaining our body temperature, because as persons, as humans, we can maintain our body temperature even though the outside environment is cold or hot. We maintain a normal temperature. So we need the fat to maintain our temperature. We need the fat to protect our organs inside of us. And we also need the fat in terms of storage of energy. But if we have too much of it, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And this is what has happened with fat, that we now have too much of it and it has now become a bad thing. So it is the amount of fat that is in the body that we're concerned about. And we measure that indirectly by checking on the weight of the person, comparing that with whether it is a male or a female. We compare it with the gender, with the height of the person, and in terms of the children, we also compare it with the age of the children.
All right, so we're not here to really blame anybody, but there are persons who may say, it's not my fault, this family is big. How would you address this?
Well, yes, your family may be big, but why is your family big? So I've seen big families because they're all eating too much. Then there is a challenge there. But then we also recognize that, remember what I said, what we're talking about was the amount of fat in the body. We also recognize that in terms of we're using our weights, and the weight does not necessarily directly correlate. So we know that there may be some differences. So bodybuilders, for example, if we measure bodybuilders according to the standards we use, they come out as being obese, but they're not obese because it's not fat that they have, it's muscle. So we recognize that genetically, some persons may be more muscular, may have more heavy set bones, and therefore may be bigger. But we're not talking about blaming anybody. What we want to know is, can we recognize when there is a real problem, and what can we do about the problem?
So in other words, are you saying that we cannot say or give a definite our ideal weight for a child?
We do give the the ideal weight for the child. So if you look at your health passport, first of all, it is standard for the Caribbean region. We have standardized our health passport. So any country, although the island on the outside is different, the content basically is the same. So we have adjusted the weight chart for our Caribbean childhood population. So based on that chart, we can say, okay, if you look at it, there's a center line, which is the 0 line. There is a +1, a +2, and above. There's a -1, a -2. So the outer lines, the ideal weight for the child is to be between those outer lines. If you're above the top line, you're too big. If you're below the bottom line, you're too small. And it's interesting that maybe 20, 30 years ago, what we were looking at in the Caribbean are persons who were below that bottom line, who were too small and had, we categorized as malnutrition. They were malnourished, they were not big enough. Now we're seeing persons who are above the top line and too big. It is still a form of malnutrition. It's when there is too much. So once they fall above that line, which is the -2, the +2 line, then we know they're above. If they're above the +1, it says danger zone. So you are getting too big, do something about it. If you have gone outside the +2 line, then we know you have a problem. And we're concerned about the weight because of the other medical problems that come with it.
So what if a child is over the normal line? What measures could be taken to get that child back into the normal?
There are a number of things we can do to get them back, but before we start talking about getting them back, we'd like to find out why did they get outside, first of all. So when we look at the chart, so when you go to the clinic, sometimes I know parents are sort of fed up. Nurse keeps telling me, bring my child to weigh my child, and my child is fine. So each time you go to the clinic, the nurse, or if you go to the doctor, they will weigh your child, because each weight we put on that chart and we see where it falls in the chart. What we would like to get is, as soon as your folks starting to go outside of that range, we recognize it and we check to see, well, what has happened, why you're changing, and correct it before you go all the way out to being obese and then at risk of the complications.
All right. To our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, if there's anything that you want to clarify, feel free. Dr. Burnette would like to hear from you. So feel free you can post your questions or comments on the chat. And I want to continue by asking, Doc, is that prevalent in Grenada? Do we have child obesity in Grenada? In other words, do we have that problem of child obesity here in Grenada?
There is childhood obesity here, but it is low.
Okay.
But although I've said it is low, I don't want it to stop there. Because if you're looking at world statistics, obesity now is being labeled as a pandemic. In other words, all over the world we're getting it. So previously it would be those first world countries, the United States, Europe, England, those were the places where we were seeing obesity, and the obesity was mainly in adults and not so much in children. Now we're seeing obesity all over the world. So it is not just confined to those areas, it is now all over the world that we're seeing obesity. And what is even more significant is that we're seeing a rise in obesity. So although if you compare with world statistics, the Grenada may be low, particularly for childhood obesity. And I'll give you some example because I was looking on the statistics. So if you compare Grenadian adolescents, or teenagers, if you compare our teenagers with the teenagers in the United States, our teenagers are smaller. if we compare within the Caribbean, also, we'll find that our children are smaller as compared to children in Jamaica, in Barbados, in Trinidad. We also in the OECS, we tend to have a lower statistics compared to others. So when we look at that, if we're comparing ourselves with other people, we're looking good because we're not as bad as them. If I'm not as bad as you, it doesn't say I'm good.
That's
It
right.
just says I'm
Correct.
not where you are. What I found significant was that the rate at which the obesity was increasing. So the last statistics that was done was in 2018, somewhere around there. And what it showed that in the preschool children, that is the smallest ones, that our obesity rate doubled compared to the last time. Now that is significant.
That's alarming. Yes.
That is alarming. So although our numbers are low, if we are doubling our numbers in a short time, we are going to be in trouble. In addition to that, if you compare like the statistics for the preschool children as compared to the adolescents and compared to the adults, as we get older, the incident increases. So for the preschool children, we are having an incident of approximately 4% of our preschool children. When we get to our teenagers, we have about 12-13%. And when we get to our adults, we're up to 57%. So that is significant. So although the absolute numbers seem to be low compared to other areas, we are seeing two things. One, in the category of the youngest children, we are doubling. And also, as we get older, then the numbers are increasing. And for that reason, it is significant. Because as I said before, when we're looking at obesity, it's not just how you look, but it's what medical problems that you get with it. You get medical problems, you shorten your life with obesity. And the complications that you get, you're not just going to die all of a sudden. Then you're going to be living with problems and living with complications. And obesity, in most cases, is entirely preventable.
So, what are some of the causes of childhood obesity?
So when we're looking at our children, there's one group that has medical complications. So it may be related to a medication that they have to take, that because of some other illness they have to take this medication and it causes them to gain weight. There's some that have hormonal problems, hormonal imbalance, and because of that, then they tend to be overweight. So you have a group that have an underlying medical problem, and we'll refer to that basically as like secondary obesity, because the reason you're getting fat is because there's something else wrong somewhere else. So we have that small group of persons, and then for those persons, what we have to look at is what is causing it and how can we control it. But for the others, which is where we would like to focus, is that these are the ones that have control over why they're getting fat. So it is either that you're eating too much, you're eating the wrong kinds of food, or you're not exercising enough. So it is like these three basic categories. And in our modern life, I think all three of them have changed. We have started eating too much, because even if you just take a look in the supermarket or in any of the stores and look at the size of the plates, and if you go to your grandmother's house and look at her plates, and you'll see that the size of our plates have gotten bigger, so that we're eating more, and to be comfortable with it, we've just made the plates bigger. It's interesting that there's something else I saw that they said, like for the size of the chairs, we've started making the chairs bigger. So I sit more comfortably on the chairs. Not that I want you to be uncomfortable, but we are accommodating what our size is. So we are definitely getting bigger because we're eating more than we would normally eat, and probably eating more than we need. The other thing is, what are we eating? So now there is, with the, we're busy people, and I'm not saying you should go back to when your grandmother used to light a wooden fire and put a pot on it and take 2 hours to cook the food and stuff like that. No. But so because of the more rapid pace of our life, instead of we tend to eat more fast foods. And the fast foods it has to be tasty for you to eat it. So you find that these foods tend to have more fats, more sugars, more salt in it. And these are the things that we don't need.
So, based on what you said, would you say that hereditary obesity, is it secondary or primary?
If you're looking on heredity, then it would have to be one of the primary problems that you will have. So that there's some problems that will run in families. But the other thing we will notice as well is that we also see environmental problems that tends to be familial. I remember this cartoon that I saw that said, fat parents have fat children. Okay, I'm not trying to fat shame anybody, but then it showed the picture of a fat mother, a fat father, a fat teenager, a fat baby, and a fat cat, which was a pet. And basically what this was trying to say is that the habits of the parents tend to be adapted by everybody else in the family. And that's why I started off with saying train up a child. Because if we are doing the right thing and we are showing them the right thing, then it will follow. So most of the times when you're seeing persons like in a whole family unit that is like that, when you look on it, the eating habits are bad, and it is the children adapting the poor eating habits of the parents. And then children can't cook for themselves. So if you cook, whatever you cook, I have to eat it. So if you're cooking the wrong thing and giving it to me, then I'm going to eat it and I'm going to be the same size you are. If you are not exercising and you don't like to, be active, then I'm not going to get up and go. If I don't see my parents running, I don't see my parents exercising, I'm not going to do it myself. I will be following what I see my parents doing.
But there's a notion that many mothers, especially, they will say, my child is fat now, but as he grows older, he will grow it out.
He will grow it out.
Is that a myth?
I hear that very often. He will grow it out. Yes, he can grow it out, but how does he grow it out? So if we have a child that is overweight, we don't very often put children on a diet to say this is a weight reducing diet. Whereas when we see the adults, we put them on weight reducing diets. For the children, we tend, if they're not too big, to not put them on a weight reducing diet, but to maintain the amount they're eating. So if you were eating one plate full of food now, for the next year or two, you're going to continue eating one plate of food, so that as children grow, then they need more nutrition. So if you maintain the volume they're eating as they're growing, then the extra amount is not there to go in fat, because they'll be using it up to grow, etc. So when we're looking at children, the amount they eat, they need enough to grow, enough for them to provide for their energy needs immediately. But most of the times when we say, oh, the child will grow it out, it means we don't plan to do anything about it. So if you leave the child eating poorly, then he's not going to grow it out. He's going to grow with it, because we haven't recognized where the problem is and how to change it.
So in relation to prevention, because after we have discussed all of those, in relation to prevention, how can we, or what can we do to prevent or to treat child obesity?
Well, there's a lot that we can do. First of all, look at why is the child, for example, why is the child eating too much? Why is the child eating the wrong kinds of food? So one of the things I want to look at is comfort eating. So if I am stressed out, I eat more. And that's a normal
Or you
thing
can eat
for,
less.
for
You can eat less.
you eat less, but sometimes we have this comfort eating. So I want to comfort myself, and I comfort myself with food. And the foods we go at when we want comforting are the unhealthy ones, the ones high in fats and high in sugar. And we sometimes, I don't think most persons think about it, but do we teach our children to comfort eat? So for example, you have a baby, and as soon as the baby cries, what does the mother do? Put him on the breast. I give him a bottle. He's crying, give him a bottle. But the baby doesn't necessarily cry because he's hungry. If the baby is wet, if the baby is uncomfortable, if the baby is feeling pain, the baby is constipated, the baby will cry. But if every time the baby cries, you offer a bottle, actually what you're teaching the baby is that when I'm distressed, when I'm uncomfortable, take food.
That's right.
So it wasn't your intention, but unintentionally, we teach the babies, okay, food is a pacifier. So they're getting bigger and they start to go to school, and I don't like school and I have a school phobia, so I go eat more. Or I get stressed, there's a bully at school. All of these things cause children to eat more because of stress from the surroundings. And we need to look at stuff like that. Do I do it? Because if I am doing it, my child will pattern me, my child will do it. And inadvertently, am I giving the child food as a pacifier so that they learn that when things go bad, eat more food. So that's one of the things that happens. Is the child getting enough activity? So we don't have persons, when I was a child, in the summer holidays, you had your chores to do, you did your chores, and then the parents let you loose. It's holidays. And what would you do? Everybody goes out to play. So you go to the river, you play, you go to the playing field, and you're running around and you're active and all of that. No, we don't do that with our children. And sometimes it is justifiable. It's not as bad here in the Caribbean, but in other countries where the playground is not safe anymore. So our parents used to let us loose and there was no supervision because the community supervised and made sure the children were safe. Now the playing areas are not safe. So I cannot justifiably tell you, just send your child out there. You need to have the child supervised so the activities start decreasing. When that decreases, what do? They sit at home, they watch the television, they play with their device, and you get food. And when you start going for food in that way, you're going for the wrong things.
Yes.
You're going for the chips, you're going for the biscuits, the sweet biscuits, you're going for sodas and all of those things. So then it creates the wrong environment for the child. So then we have to look at where did it start from, and then what can we do to correct where it started from. So if there is a problem that we can identify, then we try to work with that. So the child comes in, we are weighing the child. If the child falls in the obese category or in the overweight category, then we need to sit and speak with the parents. Tell me about your child's day. What happens in a child's day? On an average day, what does a child eat? And the typical answer is, oh, doc, he's not a big eater. He really doesn't eat a lot. But then ask them, what did the child have for breakfast? But don't start with breakfast. When the child wakes up, what is the first thing the child eats? How many of the children start eating before breakfast? Or when he wake up, he go and he take some biscuit out of the kitchen, or I give him, he starts snacking, and then at breakfast time, I give him his breakfast. And then you have to look at, what do you give for breakfast? Is it a balanced diet? I know very often persons will say we can't afford. So yes, you might not be able to afford a fancy meal. But the meal doesn't have to be fancy to provide the nutrition that the child needs. So what is a cheaper alternative that is readily available here that we can use and give the child. So look at what the child is eating, how often, because if you stop and document for yourself or document for your child what they eat in a 24-hour period, you will find that in between our meals we take quite a bit, and whatever we take adds up. For children particularly, we like to give them juice. And we say, okay, we're not giving them the soda, we're giving them the juice. But when you give juice, what do? Do you give pure juice? No, you don't. You add sugar to it. So what they're getting is additional sugar. If you were to take the fruit and just create the pure juice, then most children would not want it because it doesn't have that sweetish, happy, satisfying taste that they want. So a simple thing like cutting out sweetened juices can reduce significantly the amount of additional calories. So we leave home early, the children will not eat breakfast. We send them to school with a snack to eat before school starts as a substitute for breakfast. What's in that snack? It's a sweet juice, it may be a sandwich, hopefully it's a sandwich, which is a healthy sandwich, and then at break time they have another snack. They're having more juice, and then that time they're having sweet biscuits, or you give them money to go and buy hot dog and pizza. All of those are adding in extra calories, whereas before, what did our parents give us? You had to eat the breakfast at home.
That's right.
And when you finish eating the breakfast at snack time, it may be buy an orange from the man who is passing by with an orange or something like that, or drink water and go and play because there's no money to buy the snack.
Yes.
So start looking at those areas where we get extra calories in and cut it out. So cut down on the amount of sweetened drinks that they get. Give them water, give them a fruit. Cut down the amount of sweet biscuits. If you're going to give them a sandwich, give them a healthy sandwich. Try to avoid the high fatty food, so don't give them money to go and buy the fries and the fried chicken and the fried whatever that is there, or the pizza or those things that have an extra amount of fat. Don't. And once they get accustomed to that taste, it then becomes difficult for them to go back to the healthy food. So you can transition them. So I will hear, Doc, my child will never drink water. So what you're telling me is impossible. So why don't you cut it back? So give them, he won't drink the water, but he wants the juice. So tomorrow when you're giving him, fixing his juice, put half water in the bottle, half juice. He's still getting juice, so he gets the flavor, but it's less sugar that is in there. And you gradually cut back the amount of sugar so that he loses the taste for that extra sugar and he gets used to it, so that you can do it in that way to help to cut down the amount that they're eating. So look at that in terms of how can I reduce the amount of calories that is there that they're not burning.
As I listen to you, I realize that you are in line with what the government is now thinking of. A matter of fact, they would have recently banned sweet drinks.
I was so pleased when I heard it. I was honestly so pleased to hear it.
Schools.
Because that is a push that is happening in the first world countries, but what do? Then they send the food over to us and we buy it here and we're giving it. So when we start that, and there's some schools also that do a healthy food day. So on one particular day of the week, you may have to bring fruits to school, okay? Or bring a water day or something like that. Yes. So we are beginning to introduce them back to what is healthy and regular eating, and to get their taste buds accustomed to it. It's interesting, we teach children to acquire the taste for sugar and fats and stuff like that. Breast milk is very bland. A child who was brought up on breast milk, he loves the breast milk. A baby on breast milk, don't try to introduce a formula to them. They will scream down and let the police come to arrest you for taking away the breast because they're accustomed to it. But if you express some breast milk and taste it, it tastes bad. It has a very bland taste. And the reason it tastes bad to us is because we have gotten accustomed to the sugary taste and all of that. So they start off with breast milk, and then we introduce other things to them that they acquire these tastes, and they're almost like addictive. So they get accustomed to the sweet taste and those things, and they don't want to give it up afterwards. So you have to try and sort of reverse that. So if you cut it down slowly, they get back to the place where they forget this very sweet, sugary taste. And when it is reintroduced to them, it actually doesn't taste so nice because they've gotten accustomed to less sugars and less fats.
To our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post it on the chat. Dr. Burnette will be willing and ready to answer your questions or your comments. Just want to ask her, what would you say to her parents, or what would you advice would you give to them in regards to what's the question is, in other words, what is in the doggy's bag?
Okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean when you say
what's in the doggy bag? So when you take your family out for a meal, if there's anything left over, you always ask, "Can I take it home?" And they'll say, "Okay, I'll give you a doggy bag to take home."
Oh, okay, all right.
So hopefully we are enjoying a good meal of health education. So if it is a bit more than what we can absorb here, I need to give you some to take home.
Okay.
So a couple of things. One, recognize, as we said, that obesity is not just about the size of the child, but it's the amount of fat and the complications. So if I could, not to scare persons, but just to give them an overview of the significance of obesity. If you have a child that is obese, then these children tend to have hip problems. So the obese children have a greater incidence of dislocation of their hips, and they have problem with walking because of that. They also develop arthritis more quickly, so they get early because of the pressure on the joints, then they tend to get arthritis. They get heart problems and get heart problems earlier. One that we're very worried about is what we call non-alcoholic liver disease. So we know that when persons drink too much, then it destroys their liver, and they get complications from that. But when you are too fat, then the extra fat also affects the liver, and so it creates what we call this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which also destroys the liver. No, we would not want to drink alcohol and destroy our liver, so we shouldn't make our children so fat that we're destroying their liver. And non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is increasing among children because of the obesity that there is. They get sleeping problems, so they get what we call sleep apnea. So because of the extra fat tissue that is there, when they lay down to sleep, then the airway gets blocked up, the pressure blocks off the airway, and then they cannot breathe. And then they wake up gasping for air, or sometimes they don't actually wake up, but they become so restless that in the morning they have slept all night, but they're still tired. And if you're not, interestingly, if you're not sleeping well, then it adds to the obesity, which is another one of my pet peeves. I didn't say much about it, but our children are always on devices. So they are with their phones in their bed at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock messaging each other instead of sleeping. If you're not, too much sleep is not good for you, and inadequate sleep is also not good, so it adds to it. Type 2 diabetes. These children get a greater incidence of type 2 diabetes. So these are the medical problems, but the social problems are equally important. These children tend to have a lower self-esteem because they they get so much of a negative response. You're fat and you're ugly. You're fat and you're dunce.
So they're stigmatized.
So they're stigmatized,
Yes.
and therefore they you know, the bigger child is the one most likely to get bullied at school. Or you fatty boom boom, you can't, you know. They do, and they get left out. If you're picking a cricket team, you're not going to pick the fat.
Yes,
You don't want to lose your match, you know. But if you're picking a relay team, so they get left behind.
That's right.
And because of that, they tend to get left out. And it's interesting because when you go for a job interview, this is some of the indirect responses that we get. We don't recognize it, but we automatically, without consciously doing it, disclaim the fatter person. So two persons come for a job interview. They have equal qualifications. They present themselves equally. We tend to go to the smaller person rather than the fatter person in terms of. So these are subtle ways in which they get discriminated against. So we don't really want that to happen. So we need to look at how can we change it and what can we do in terms of helping with that. So some simple things. It doesn't have to be an expensive and, you know, life-changing event that we have to do, but small changes make a big difference. One is eating meals together. As a family.
Okay.
So I'm telling you, you're too fat, and now I'm telling you, go eat together as a family. So how does that work? The research that was done showed that if a family eats at a minimum of 3 meals per week together, then it reduces the incidence of obesity. But why should that be?
Interesting.
If we're, when I noticed that in myself, if I'm sitting and eating by myself, I eat very fast. And I tend to eat more.
You tend to talk more when you're together.
But when you're together as a family and
Yes.
eating, then you're talking more and you're eating less. You know, if you sit and eat together. So you sit and you're eating, you're talking more. In addition to that, the meals that you prepare at home. So if you're eating together at home, prepare the meal at home, so then it would be less of the additives from the fast food that you're buying during the week. And it doesn't have to disturb your work. So if you're saying, doctor, you can afford it, you can say that. I have to be out of the house 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't have time to cook during the week. Well, what happens on a weekend? You're at home on a weekend. And particularly, I'm assuming most of us watching this program are going to be Seventh-day Adventists. We are home on a Sabbath. So that's your 3 meals for the day. Eat breakfast together on a Sabbath morning, wake up on time, sit down, eat breakfast, eat lunch together as a family, and have supper together. That's 3 meals in a week. So it hasn't disturbed your earning power,
Right.
but it has significantly reduced, and it has made a positive. So apart from the calories that you're taking in, it's the security of the family as well. Remember, we said stress and bullying and those things. If I know I have a safe family, a secure family I'm coming home to, I am more confident. So you go and you call me, you try to bully me on the road. I'm so confident, I pass it off, I throw it back at you rather than internalize it and make it worse. So eating meals together as a family makes a difference. Exercise together as a family. If you can do it in the morning, fine. If you can make the sacrifice, get up 15-20 minutes earlier, do some exercise. And it doesn't mean investing in paying for a gym and paying how much money to get gym membership. Just walking. Just walking. If you live close to the sea, go to the seaside, Play cricket, play football with your children. If you are in the country, you have a farm, let the children come to the farm with you and you're talking to them and they're helping you and you're showing them stuff. So that they are with you, they're getting the activity, the physical activity, They are learning the correct attitudes and they're eating less. So the activities there that is going to burn, and then they're going to be eating healthier food. As I said, lead by example. So I cannot tell you, stop eating the sweets, and then when you come home and you say, but mommy, that is cake that you're eating. I said, child, leave me alone. Mind your business. No, that's the wrong message. What they're learning is that I don't do it now, but when I'm an adult, I can eat unhealthy food. So give the right example so that they get there.
So not do as I say.
Right. It is do what I do. And you have to make sure.
Yes.
Having children is a very weighty responsibility, because things you would never recognize in yourself before, you now see it as the children come, and or you tell them, don't do this, and they say, but mommy, you were doing it, or but daddy, you are doing it. And you stop and you reflect, and then you recognize, yes, I did. But you're not, without that child calling you out, you don't recognize you're doing things. So then it forces you to do the right thing, and then they will see, and then they will pattern after it. There's a coworker I have, a coworker of mine. He was brought up as a Hindu, and the Hindus, he was brought up as a vegetarian. We fuss about our vegetarian message, but the majority of vegetarians in this world are not Adventists, they're Hindus. They don't have a problem with it. So he grew up, he doesn't adhere to the religion anymore, so he has become secular. But he's still vegetarian. So it has stayed with him, the way he eats and the way he lives, it has remained with him. And it goes back to what I said, train up a child. You bring them in the right way. It is not just about training up the child in terms of religious beliefs and doctrines. It is the whole child, the whole person. Train this child to be a fully healthy Christian person, and they won't change afterwards. And even if you see them deviating, the basic values, the foundation is there, and the values remain the same.
That's right.
So if you teach them, if you lead by example, then they're going to get there. And just remind you, like I said, it's easy to get rid of the extra sugars, cut down the juice. If you're so attached to the juice, make the juice have strength. You're still getting the sweet taste, but you're not getting as much. There's a company in Jamaica that normally markets juices, and now Jamaica is also having the push for healthy food and healthy living, particularly for the kids. So they used to give, the usual juice, so you can get your orange juice, your pineapple juice, your fruit punch, whatever, all of those things. No, they have introduced the water. So you can get cranberry water. Okay. So instead of buying the cranberry juice with all of that, then you buy cranberry water. So you buy whatever fruit it is. Instead of calling it fruit juice, they call it fruit water. Okay. So when you look at the label, it has significantly less sugars, but it gives it a fruity flavor that they're accustomed to. So
it's flavored with the fruit?
Yes, it's water flavored with a fruit. Okay. So they're that's a smart way to think ahead of the market. So now that persons are becoming healthy, I change my juice and I make it healthy, so quote unquote healthy, so that now you have persons buying it. So do it for yourself as well. Give water, give cranberry water so that it helps.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to a child who is obese, what faces all this stigma, and even within himself he has a struggle? He wants to lose weight, but still he has a struggle with eating too much and not enough parental guidance and example and all the things that you would have listed. What counsel would you give to a child who has those issues?
Number one, it's not like I said in the beginning, it is not how you look, it is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am skinny, if I'm normal weight, if I'm fat, I am still me. And I am that person who God wanted me to be. So I'm not here by accident. God made me. God allowed me to come here. God has a purpose for me. So I am God's child. So if you try to insult me, tell him, okay, if you insult me, say, don't insult God's child, stop insult God.
So that's about self-esteem.
It's about a self-esteem,
Yes.
and they learn to rebut, so they don't have to take it and cringe. You say, okay, come fatty boom boom. Say, who you calling fatty boom boom? Mind how you insult my father, I will tell God on you. God is my father.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different response. Next time they will think twice before they come, and then the person themselves will recognize that, hey, you know, I am worth it. So it doesn't matter who your child is, what your child looks like. They are special, they're important, and they're worth it, and they should never be put down, and they should never let anybody put them down. So that is one. Other one is difficult because you can't work with a child alone. It needs an adult to work with a child. So you can plan with them. So okay, now I've measured you. You are 20 pounds overweight. We're going to do something about it. Do you really want to lose it? It's going to make you feel better. So all right, we'll set a 6-month goal. So over 6 months, how much of that weight?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than you let the child work with you, 20 pounds is a lot. I say, okay, it's a lot. How much do you want to lose? I will lose 10 pounds. Fine, let's work with the 10 pounds. What is it that you're eating? No, you have to give up. I start with 2. I work with 2s. Give up 2 unhealthy food you're eating and substitute it with 2 healthy foods. So what's the list of the foods that you eat that's not healthy? You sit and let them list. Okay, what is it that I look at the list and say, tell me 2 that you can give up. So if you're going to tell them, take away all your food, no, it's not going to happen. They're going to sneak and eat it. They will. Yeah. So let's start with 2. Which are the 2 you're willing to give up? Okay, I'll give up the ice cream. Fine. No ice cream for the next month. What else do you want to give up? I'm not giving up my pizza. Fine, hold your pizza. I won't take the pizza. Okay, I will also give up. I'll give up the
sweet drinks.
The sweet drinks. So all right. So that's 2 things we have lost. So no, these are our healthy foods. Choose 2 healthy ones that you want to substitute. To replace. So you're gonna choose from the list. What do you want? Am I going to, and we need to balance it. So choose a vegetable. I hate vegetables. Choose 1. There's the list. I will never eat tomatoes. Well, fine, I won't give you tomatoes. What else will you eat? Mm-hmm. You don't want to eat it? Drink it. So, yucky, tastes bad, horrible. So yes. Make it good. So then it becomes the adult's choice to make it good. So we're going into the healthy juice. Mm-hmm. So yes, we're doing healthy juice and we're doing juice in this week. So I'm going to make a fruit juice, but then I add some vegetables to it. Don't start with beets. If they don't like the taste of beet, they will not take it. Something like carrots, something like cucumbers that doesn't have a very strong taste, then you can add a little to the fruit juice. So now they're taking it. Then gradually you add more and you add others. So yes, at the end of the month, you didn't eat the carrot, but you put it in the juice and you drank it. Or I'll never eat spinach. I can put a little in your rice. Just take a little bit in the rice and we increase it. So next month, at the end of the month, come and okay, they have lost 1 pound. You're gonna think, oh, that's horrible. No, don't say horrible. Celebrate it. Wow, we have started. You have lost 1 pound. We're on our way now. We only have 9 pounds left.
So you've seen results.
So you show them the results. Yes. Show them what is happening. That's say, right. Okay, now let's go back to the list. We're keeping the 2 that you took out. We're keeping it out. no, take out 2 more. Because we need to lose another pound this week. Or if you want, do you want to lose more? Do you think you can go? So you work with them in that way.
So you should set weekly goals, at least weekly goals.
So you set the goals. Some can work with weekly goals or monthly goals. Every month, then we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And let me do it with you, okay? So you need to lose 10 pounds, and I'm going to try and lose, okay? If I'm big too, well, I'm going to lose 10 pounds too. Why should a child be losing the 10 pounds when you're not losing any? Why am I being punished?
So if you'll
yes, lead by example.
That's
Again,
right.
lead by example. So we're going to do it together. What exercise do you like to do? I hate cricket. I will not. Fine, we don't play cricket. Do you like football? You like soccer? Yes, let's go do it. Do you like to cycle? Do you like basketball? Then I have to go learn basketball to play basketball with you, so I'm around. Or at least I go with you and you're playing basketball and I will jog around the field and we're working together and we come back and we do that once per week. So when you do it that way, you motivate the children. And once they're motivated, children are competitive. So I am going to be daddy. Daddy's not going to lose more weight. Daddy, you lose more weight. I mean, never happen. Next month is a different story. I have to beat you. So then make it a family affair, and then it will improve. And I said, one important key area that we don't look at is their connection with God and their religious beliefs. We teach them to trust God, teach them to pray for themselves. So if you have a problem, you struggle, talk to God about it, pray about it. And it can, talk to me, pray to God, He will help you. So you recognize that there is a source, there is a help for me. Don't let them think that, oh, never mind. We come into a world where there's no problem. The only world where there's no problem is after God comes. As long as we are here in a sinful world, there is going to be a problem. So it is, how do you cope with the problem? And with God on my side, I do so much better. And once they learn that in childhood, it stays with them all the time. They have less stress. Then, we didn't go into details of stress, but stress releases a hormone called cortisol. It makes you put on weight. If you're less stressful, there's less cortisol, there's less weight. I talked to my father, God, put it in the For Jesus to Do box. Make it real. Create a For Jesus to Do box. If you have a problem, write it, put it in the box. So you put it in the box, you tell Jesus, remind Jesus it in the box. He's going to fix it for you. That's not your problem. Let's go on with the other one. And they get more comfortable with things like that. And the more confident and comfortable they are, the less likely they are to sit and eat snacks, to binge eat, to create unhealthy habits in terms of their food.
All right. So I want to thank you, Doc, for the information that you have shared to our viewers, and I hope that our viewers will really take heed. I hope that you are tremendously blessed by the information. I hope that you will seek to put those things into practice. And to our children who might have obesity, don't think that it's the world has ended for you, but there is hope. And I want to encourage you to do whatever you can, parents as well as children, to do your best so that at the end we all can live healthy and happier lives. So once again, Doc, thank you for having me very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lord, I come before you with contrite heart. Humbly I surrender all that I am. I want to learn from you. Please draw me close to you. Help me share your love and grace in all I do. Lord, I come before you with contrite heart. Humbly I surrender all that I am. I want to learn from you. Please draw me close to you. Let me share your love and grace in all I do. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Oh Lord, transform me. Change my heart completely to be more like you. Oh Lord, renew me. Heal my mind and broken heart today. I want to be and to do what you commanded, and be filled with the Spirit every day. I want to serve you wherever you may lead me. I want to serve you till the very end. Help me shine light to a darkened world, and always live your truth in every way. May your love for me be seen by everyone, and lead others to trust and love you more.